Today's presentation is sponsored by Ignigma, issue number 4. Scan the QR codes right there, right there. One is for to send cash, the other is to go to the website. I'm talking about today. Capitalism doesn't work for people without capital. The idea of excavating mineral resources, including ore, trees, fish, pulling resources from the earth itself, and then use your intellectual property to manufacture products out of this natural resource, and then creating a distribution network to the people who has a demand for these natural resources, and then consuming these natural resources, and then the technological advancements to make these capabilities more efficient as far as excavating resources from the earth, manufacturing, and doing research and development to create technologies to apply these natural resources, computer science, computer chips, manufacturing of automobiles, metals, steel beams. You got trees that you make 2x4s, stencils, 4x4s, pillars, beams, pillars, things that you need to build, things that people need to live in. It's all about providing for people's food, clothing, and shelter, building houses, and then entertainment. Now, the so-called American Negro, since the late 1800s, has been led to believe that they should focus solely on entertainment and the liberal arts, poetry, studying law, studying abstract things, and they should abandon building, construction, the trades, and manufacturing because they say that's still akin to slavery. And this movement was led by the Uncle Toms, W.E.B. Du Bois. And this movement made way for masses of European immigrants to come to America to take in those positions that black people abandoned: building, construction, the trades, carpentry, welding. And now, over 100 years later, the American Negro realized they have been deceived. These industries are essential for any civilization because without people building, constructing, welding, designing, even farming, you won't have houses to live in, you won't have food to eat, you won't have weapons, artillery to defend yourself. What you gonna do with poetry? What you gonna do with music without food? Usually music is a way to, it's like ambient noise. When you're at a museum, you're at a restaurant, they play the music in the background. But the priority is the restaurant, the food that's being served, the money being traded. Now, because the American Negro has abandoned most industries, primary industries, we don't have capital we're not participating in capitalism, because in capitalism you need billions of dollars, access to millions of dollars, property, resources. And usually the false narrative about capitalism is this: capitalism is founded on socialism, because after the Great Depression of the 1929, so-called Black Tuesday, is that what they call it, Black Tuesday, when the stock market crashed, the United States government adopted policies that was enacted by Adolf Hitler in Germany, National Socialist policies, in which he said all of the resources of the government should go to German citizens, and the government should make sure these citizens propel and elevate economically in business. And when Roosevelt created the New Deal, it was the same principle that the government had a responsibility to secure and support business, but to a particular people, white Caucasians, a certain nationality. All the other undesirable nationalities should be the ones to be exploited and robbed in order to redistribute the wealth to the desired nationality, the white people. And most American Negroes don't understand this principle. They don't understand social science, political science. They just go off their emotions and they just go off their beliefs and their feelings and thinking that them spending money and participating on a small, minute level and not really being, I should say, I'm not going to say stingy, but exclusive to where your money go. You're either empowering yourself or disempowering yourself. That's why you don't see Chinese people spending money with non-Chinese people. Hispanics don't spend money with non-Hispanics because they know economics is power, and the more economics they have, the higher they elevate into the world, and the more participation they have in capitalism, because you accumulate capital with the masses of people harnessing their wealth collectively and making themselves a strong group instead of a bunch of rich people. I looked at Russia's GDP, gross domestic product. It's $1.7 trillion. Black Americans' GDP is $2 trillion. That means so-called black Americans is richer than Russia. But because Russia is a nation of people that's all working together, they are richer and powerful than black Americans, because the black Americans' economics don't stay in the black community. Immediately once you get paid, you got to pay white people and Mexicans with all these contracts, insurance, rent, mortgage, taxes. So your money is just going straight through. You just a stream giving all your wealth to these non-black people. The entire black community is controlled and owned by white-owned banks or white landlords or Caucasian or East Indian Arab landlords. And because they own the land, you have to pay them to live there, giving all of your hard-earned money to them, thus empowering these individual groups of people. And as a group, even though they participate in capitalism, collectively they practice socialism, excluding the money, circulating the money, helping each other, pooling their resources, or even the idea of living together in one house. That means each individual is not spending money on rent, and that extra money is being used to empower the group instead of everybody living in an apartment. And then if everybody living in an apartment, each individual is given a massive amount of their monthly wages to usually a foreigner. And that's disempowering economically the group. And if you have less economics, you have less power. It's less likely that you will be able to participate in excavating natural resources for the development and manufacturing of commodities, building, construction, farming, because you don't have the resources and the money to participate. So in order to participate in capitalism, you must have an institution of national socialism, or how not W.E.B. Du Bois, because W.E.B. Du Bois was against black nationalism, but you need black nationalism, which came before national socialism, which is actually a derivative of black nationalism, because the whole world studied Booker T. Washington. And Booker T. Washington was one of the founders of black nationalism, because they saw how fast the American Negro ascended to great economic heights due to excluding their resources. But it was a byproduct of the United States excluding the Negro. And by them excluding the Negro with their separate but equal policies, that allowed the American Negro to accumulate massive amounts of wealth and power, and to actually participate in worldwide capitalism, worldwide industries and trade. But because the American Negro have been deceived into thinking that you can participate in capitalism as an individual, this is why we're not in power right now. You participate in global capitalism as a group. That's why you have these investment groups that come to the so-called American Negro community and purchase up all the property as a group and then redistribute the land to white members, individual members. So the individual participate off of the group, the social, the National Socialist apparatus that they create, which is the investment group that they pour their money together to create a powerful individual, which is a corporation. Because the U.S. Code says a corporation is a person. So each person put their money together to make one big, giant, rich person. And this person goes and just purchase up a lot of property and land. And then this person redistribute the land back to the members. So you'll think, okay, white people are just rich because they just somehow got the key. No, they just practice National Socialism. Pull their money together, invest as a group. And when you invest as a group, they call it collective bargaining, meaning that the prices go down. And then if the prices go down for the group, they can redistribute the resources they purchase a group to each individual members, and they get this massive reduction in costs. And the surplus money that they have, they could either save it for themselves or reinvest it back in the group and acquire more property and land and resources. But the function of the group is to serve the individual members. So the individual members don't have to go out there and try to compete with the world. The group, the corporation, the apparatus goes and does that. What a board of directors, qualified individuals who has probably master's degrees in business, politics, they lead the group. The individual members are probably just regular people with regular jobs, but they the ones who inevitably benefit from the group. This is what the American Negro pioneered after so-called slavery was over in 65. And then the whole world saw how fast the American Negro ascended. They copied the principles and then took the principles from the American Negro by making them believe that that was the wrong thing to do. You must study poetry, music, law. You must study all of these, or psychology, but don't practice construction, building. Don't practice carpentry, and don't work as a group. Because they say in 1965, I would say not even from 1955 up until 1971, the FBI said the biggest threat to the United States is black nationalist groups. And the FBI was created by J. Edgar Hoover to sabotage the Garvey movement in the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, and the 19-teens when he had the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which he convinced masses of black people in America to invest in his Black Star Line, to purchase these steamships to conduct international trade between Africa and the so-called diaspora in America. And then Liberia allocated millions of acres of land full of rubber trees to Garvey. And then the FBI, it was really called the BI, Bureau of Investigations, was created to sabotage this movement because they saw the great power it was actually accumulating. And by default, the American Negro, because they was isolated economically, they was able to harness this money that they was making in regular jobs and invested in this group. And this group was able to accumulate massive amounts of wealth, steamships, land in Africa, land in other countries, farming. And then you saw the Nation of Islam, under Elijah Muhammad. They did the same thing. The group got together, everybody put money into the group, and then they acquired all of these farms. They had an airplane. They had temples all over America. They had businesses all over America because the group worked as a unit. It was nationalism, black nationalism, or so-called National Socialism, because when you're dealing with the money and people putting their money together, and then the money that they put together end up going back and benefiting the group as a whole, that was the socialism aspect. But the nationalist aspect was it was exclusive to these particular people. And then the Nation of Islam, they provided grocery stores for the entire community. It wasn't just for the members of the Nation of Islam. Like in Chicago, Your Supermarket, Salam Restaurant. And they had supermarkets all over Chicago, New York, Detroit. And then when Elijah died, Minister Farrakhan and Warid Muhammad decided to destroy all of the businesses and focus solely on the religious aspect, the abstract aspect, and not the functional aspect, meaning that you're going to provide the resources that human beings need, which is food, clothing, and shelter. And once the Nation of Islam or whatever organization they created, the Bilalian and then the Muslim American Society, they had to depend on foreigners to provide for their food, clothing, and shelter. The Nation of Islam even had a land development company called the Progressive Land Developers, in which they built housing complexes for the members. And then when the nation abandoned these apparatuses, the members had to go and rent houses from white people or non-members, and that weakened them economically because they no longer had a group to invest in. They had a bank called they had a bank on Stony Island that Farrakhan abandoned. Now it's an art studio. So people don't have a place to put their money. They don't have a group to invest in that they can trust that's going to go out there and represent them and acquire land, property, resources to make their lives better and to help them elevate economically. It's just a bunch of individuals thinking that they're going to go into the world and become these millionaires. It's not enough money for everybody to be a millionaire, for one. And it's not really practical for everybody to be rich, because you need people to work jobs, regular jobs. You need people to provide these resources. But if you was able to figure a way for a person to work a regular job and still have a wealthy life, that's a balance that you could strike. And that person needs to understand that they must participate in group economics, group politics, in order for them to benefit as an individual, because every other successful group of people does this. They have investment groups, they have wealthy groups that's full of regular people. But that's what I want to talk about. Capitalism doesn't work unless you have capital. And the only way usually for groups of people to get capital is to get that as a group of people, as a collective, and then redistribute the resources down to the individuals. This is the function of a government, really. The government acts as a group. It requires taxes from the people, and then in exchange for these taxes, it provides them with security. It provides them with infrastructure. It provides them an opportunity to elevate. And then usually, like governments like the United States, because all governments don't function the same way. Some governments allows the individual citizens to benefit off of the economic gains. Within the United States, only like white people, white corporations are the ones benefiting off of the economic gains, while the regular individuals are just slaves forced to pay these taxes. And you get no dividends off of the investments that the United States make. It's not a really good relationship. But that's about it.